Supervisor Powers.
Of your generous charity, I ask that you allow us time to remember Supervisor Mike Norton. The invocation will follow the commendatory prayer. In your hands, O merciful Savior, we commend your servant Michael. Acknowledge, we humbly beseech you, a sheep of your own fold, a lamb of your own flock, a sinner of your own redeeming. Receive him into the arms of your mercy and into the blessed rest of everlasting peace and into the glorious company of the saints in light. Amen. Amen. Wondrous and gracious Creator, we commend this nation to your merciful care, that we may be guided to live such that we dwell secure in peace. Grant to President Biden, Governor Evers, Senator Johnson, Senator Baldwin, Representative Grothman, and this body here present, and to all in authority, the wisdom and strength to serve the people of Wisconsin and Winnebago County. Fill them with the love of truth, righteousness, and service. Amen.
Do I have anyone to adopt the agenda this evening? Motion is made and second for the approval of adoption of the agenda this evening. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Public comment at this time. It's time to be allowed for persons to present to express their opinion on any resolution or ordinance that appears on the agenda, as well as any matter over which the body has jurisdiction. Pursuant to Rules 6.4, 8.1, and 10.1 of the 2022-2024 Rules of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors, the County Board Chair shall, in all public comments, limit to 2 minutes. So if you wish to speak to the board this evening, go up to either one of the mics, state your name and address and what you'd like to say.
Kay Horan, County Board Supervisor for District 5, 324 9th Street in Neenah. I just want to state that Menasha Library has donated to our youth shelter on Harrison Street library books so that those young people have access to books. I am so excited for their help. Thank you.
Matthew Olson, 8303 Salby Road, Larson, Wisconsin. I'm the town chairman for the town of Winchester. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to address you tonight. First and foremost, thank you for your commitment and service to the residents of Winnebago County. I am sure I not only speak for myself, but also for the citizens when I express my gratitude for the work you do. Before you tonight is a proposed amendment to the Winnebago County General Code relating to property access, Resolution 219-042023. I would respectfully request your support for this simple but important word change. The clarification will not only eliminate the ambiguity of the current code, but it will also prioritize safety and landowner rights. Additionally, it provides for mutual cooperation between the county and towns, which is essential and beneficial to planned and orderly development of our rural communities. While I am paraphrasing, the county traffic code identifies its purpose and intent in part to promote safe and efficient ingress and egress to roads in the interest of public safety by reducing accidents caused by poorly designed driveways. The code as currently written and applied in some circumstances is in direct opposition to its own purpose and intent. The town of Winchester and many other towns throughout the county also have adopted access and driveway regulations with the same purpose and intent, safety. The county code, by requiring access to be located on a town road simply because it is a physical possibility, falls short of the needed scrutiny to guarantee the safest location is selected. District 36 Representative Howard Miller distributed a draft map which illustrates just one of the potential safety issues created by the current traffic code. If you would for a moment look at that map and imagine your children or grandchildren waiting for a school bus at the end of a driveway located on the intersection of County Road M and Grandview Road. They are standing at a Y intersection on the inside of a curve on which traffic does not yield or stop when traveling eastbound. The driveway and the children are hidden from drivers as they approach the driveway, as they approach. Alternatively, consider the children's experience waiting for a school bus at the end of a driveway located along a straight stretch of road with a clear visibility of more than 600 feet in either direction. The latter is clearly preferable, but the current county traffic code prohibits this safer location. The simple but significant word change will promote safety and protection of landowners, motorists, and citizens of Winnebago County. With each passing day, development continues. It is essential for Winnebago County and the towns within its borders to work together to promote the safety and well-being of everyone who lives, works, and visits our beautiful communities. Again, I respectfully request your support of the amendment to the traffic code before you this evening. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing?
My name is Beth Oswald. I'm a resident of Black Wolf. I live on Highway 45 South, Oshkosh. I'm the CEO and president of the Oshkosh Area United Way. Because of my position, I was appointed to the Spirit Commission, having a breadth of knowledge about the needs in our community. Previously, I led a nonprofit that refused to shut down during COVID due to the demand of needs by the individuals we served. I saw the direct effects of the shutdown. We, the commission, bring recommendations to the board on how to spend the $33 million that Winnebago County was awarded under the American Rescue Plan Act, aka ARPA. The resolutions you're voting on come from me personally and my small group of peers that sit on this commission. I'm personally vested in ensuring the funding is distributed equitably, fairly, and where it has the greatest impact in our community. Because of this, I still feel a sense of duty to call out when I see the work of this commission be degraded and the committee be called names like dysfunctional. So in reference to the amendment brought last month of removing line 48, first, the category was not solely earmarked for nonprofits, hence the title of non-governmental community projects. The target was to use that funding to rebuild businesses that saw the greatest negative impact from COVID. I want to make it clear that nonprofit is not a business model, it's simply a tax status. It still is a business, but instead of an individual or investors benefiting from profits, there's a social or community benefit. Anyone that's been part of these commission conversations heard the focus for this category: projects that would create a lasting legacy that would have the greatest impact on the community, non-political, non-religious, and so forth. So the 4 points that were being attempted to make were grossly misguided and misinformed. The U.S. Treasury website, right on their main page, says the American Rescue Plan is providing fast and direct economic assistance for American workers, families, small businesses, and industries, and then goes on to talk about funding programs to address continuing pandemic-related crises. Humans were affected by COVID. Mental health, violence, addiction, these were the issues that have risen to the level of crisis as a direct result from the pandemic. The first point was prioritizing essential services over non-essential like nonprofits. Basically, you were saying infrastructure should supersede basic needs. When ever would streets and sidewalks supersede or be a priority over people? You talk about the safety of public, yet many of our area nonprofits' sole missions are specifically for public protection. ARPA is not a basic function of government. This is a complete outlier. If you were talking about general government function, how our property tax money should be utilized, then sure, infrastructure is absolutely a priority and the reason that we pay taxes. The second point, fiscal responsibility. Mismanagement leads to waste of public funds. I'm not exactly sure what the point was trying to make other than attempting to imply that nonprofits are run willy-nilly with loose accounting practices. I heard another supervisor say we don't know where that money goes. On that, I'd simply ask that you educate yourself. GuideStar is a free option for you to do so. Many of our community nonprofits receive federal, state, and local funding, and because of that are held to a higher reporting, accounting, and audit standards than most businesses and government entities. This would encourage economic growth was the third point, and this one was so easy that I'm actually disappointed that some of you supervisors didn't catch this one because you completely defeated your own argument with this point. You asked that the board put the 25% funding that actually was slated for economic growth go to small businesses, tourism, things that were hit the hardest by COVID, and put it in the category solely for government projects. I can even justify if it had moved into the government identified projects category to make it a 25-75 split, which would allow funding for those supported government functions. My hope is this was accidental and not intentionally meant to mislead fellow supervisors to vote in favor. And then the last category was personal choice. Again, as you've seen, the commission submits recommendations based on our research. The board would have had the choice to determine what projects to approve. When you talk about personal choice, we all understand that there are some things we just have to pay for to build a safe, healthy, functioning community. Families that choose to send their kids to parochial schools still pay their taxes to fund public schools, which may have ideologies that differ than their own. Many nonprofits that serve and assist government functions receive city, state, and federal grants, which are paid through various revenue streams, but ultimately through the people. How can our community experience economic growth when 16,400 households in Winnebago County, that's a third of our county, are working, yet they live just above the poverty level, but below the basic cost of living for Winnebago County? So for a family of 3, that's a meager $24,900 at the poverty level. These households rely on nonprofits for their basic needs like housing and food. Outside the city of Oshkosh, Menasha tops the chart for households living in poverty per capita. We've heard this board complain about not liking the term spirit. While maybe it's not my favorite either, sorry, John, it does articulate that the money would continue to be used in the spirit of ARPA, and this decision to move that $8 million out of community projects and into strictly government projects completely obliterated that spirit. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Al Hansen, 7813 County Road M, Larson, Wisconsin. First off, I gotta apologize for not being prepared for this. I found out about this meeting about an hour and a half prior to getting here. And I just wanna say that this ordinance that the town of Winchester is changing. I wanna say I would appreciate if the county would keep control of it. Me for one, couple other people in this room here, one that this driveway, Howard Wojon, he had no clue of it until 4 o'clock this afternoon when I got a hold of him. And we're being blindsided on this. My wife has a vegetable stand on the end of our driveway. I got a letter sent to me in July and saying that I'm not in compliance with the town. I'm county, I have shoreland zoning, which right here it says county ordinance will overrule. The town just will not accept that. He went to the extent of calling the highway commissioner. Highway commissioner came out, said there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a personal vendetta. That's exactly what's going on with this driveway. Our town board has personal vendettas. That's why I would like to see all of you guys take control of it versus one person. So, thank you.
Todd Boyce, 8423 Sawby Meyer Lane, town of Winchester. I also echo the words of Al. Because I have concerns with our current town government and the things that are happening, so I ask that you guys keep it in control of the county as well for the benefit of the town of Winchester. Thank you.
Alicia Garrig, 333 West 12th Ave, Oshkosh. I am the Executive Director at Christina Ann Domestic Abuse Services, and I am here today to share my great concern at the decision by the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors on March 21st to not allocate any county ARPA funds specifically to nonprofits. We are asking that you reconsider funding Christine Ann's capital campaign under government identified projects by funding a portion of our purchase of the beach building at 240 Algoma Boulevard to expand services for survivors of domestic abuse, which includes transitional housing. The need for domestic violence services has never been higher. With the increased physical violence and record-breaking homicides that we saw over the last few years, in Wisconsin, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 7 men will experience domestic abuse in their lifetime. There were 3 domestic violence-related homicides in Winnebago County just during the month of March. We are the designated domestic abuse agency for Winnebago and Green Lake counties. Christine Ann serves 600 to 800 survivors of domestic abuse each year, 80% of whom are Winnebago County residents. Although our main office and shelter are located in Oshkosh, our reach goes far beyond the city limits, and we serve clients from across the county. We reach the northern part of Winnebago County through a satellite office in Levin, located in Menasha. Christine Ann provides essential services. Our services are critical for the safety and well-being of all Winnebago County residents. The work that Winnebago County and Christine Ann does is interwoven. In providing essential services, our agency works closely with and takes some of the burden off of government entities. We currently receive a grant from Winnebago County Human Services to support our emergency shelter. We partner with and train Winnebago County Sheriff's Department on administering a life-saving lethality assessment protocol for high-risk domestic violence victims. One of our advocates sits on the Winnebago County Elder and Adult for Risk of interdisciplinary team. We partner with other county-supported organizations like AdvoCap to empower survivors. We are truly partners in serving the most vulnerable in our community and making Winnebago County a safer place to work, live, and visit. As many of you are well aware, there's a great need for transitional housing programs and affordable housing in our community. Many other organizations are working very hard to address this need, yet there are still limitations that leave survivors of domestic abuse underserved. For example, COTS and Day by Day only accept single adults with no children. Father Cars does not accept men with children and has a waiting list for women and children. AdvoCap clients have to find their own housing before receiving rent assistance. Tiny houses are not a fit for survivors with serious safety concerns, families larger than 4, those with mobility challenges, and survivors who benefit from the access of an advocate under the same roof. Additionally, City of Oshkosh residents are prioritized for tiny houses, leaving the rest of the county still underserved. Christine Ann is the missing puzzle piece. Our transitional housing program for survivors across Winnebago County, which is not possible in our current space, will fill in the remaining gaps in our community.
Good evening. My name is Emily James. I'm the Grant and Stewardship Specialist at Christine Ann, located at 206 Algoma Boulevard in Oshkosh, and I have the honor of co-leading our capital campaign with Alicia. As you may know, the goal of Christine Ann's capital campaign is to purchase, renovate, and move into the beach building next door to our current location in downtown Oshkosh. Board, staff, and volunteers have been working toward this goal for well over a year. This move will increase the capacity of our emergency shelter from 37 beds to 60 beds and allow us to offer a brand new transitional housing program with 11 apartments. Prior to identifying the beach building, we explored the possibility of adding on to our current facility. This option would have been less expensive and not required ARPA funds. In conducting our feasibility study with donors, partners, and other stakeholders, all were supportive of our expansion, but many were not supportive of the cost compared to the low number of rooms and beds added. Furthermore, this option would not have allowed us to add the transitional housing program. For these reasons, we began exploring other options, and that's when the beach building became available to us. Based on the formula that has been worked on by the ARPA Commission up until this point, county ARPA funds have been part of our diverse funding strategy for this campaign. Your choice to fund Christine Ann has the power to make our vision in the new building a reality and help us serve thousands more survivors there for decades to come. based on the result of our feasibility study and the limitations of other funding sources, it is unlikely that we will be able to move forward without county ARPA funding. The closing of the beach building property is already slated for February 29th, 2024, allowing for a transparent accounting of how the funding was spent on this one-time purchase and alleviate any extensive or continued reporting. We do undergo an annual independent audit by a third-party firm. We have already spent about $160,000 on capital campaign consultant fees, earnest money payments, and an inspection of the beach building, which would all be lost if we must stop now. Perhaps most significantly, the limitations of our current building and constraints on our ability to serve survivors, such as safety concerns from having two disconnected buildings, few rooms for large families, few ADA accessible rooms, inability to accept pets on site, inability to add more staff members. All these reasons caused us to look for a new facility in the first place. They would remain a challenge for who knows how many more years. Christine Ann is not the only nonprofit negatively impacted by this decision. Another local nonprofit has been identified to purchase Christine Ann's current building and expand their own services. We have been working with them for over the last few months on terms and are currently waiting on a letter of intent to be returned with earnest money. You may also consider the small businesses who have already moved out or not renewed their leases at the beach building in anticipation of our moving in. Without ARPA funds to make these necessary projects possible, multiple organizations will be unable to grow, resulting in the continued lack of affordable housing and inability to expand services to even more vulnerable folks in our community. Thank you.
I'm Howard Woods, 8144 County Road M, and it was referred to earlier, the driveway on M and Grandview. I own it and was just trying to sell it, an acre, to a lady that wanted to build a house there. I just retired farming, and pretty much my 401k plan is when I sell my property, and I got that driveway. We farmed there 59 years, and it's been there probably way longer than that, and well, it should be grandfathered in, but apparently with the town it's not, but because the ordinance was wrote way after the driveway was there. And the issue was safety. They denied it the first time because of safety. Second time was because it was with the road or the driveway being changed from ag to residential, which it was going to be used for both. They said that brings it up to new current standards, and I don't believe that, because in their zoning and ordinance it didn't say nothing about how you could use a driveway or what you could do with it. And that was like 2-3 years ago, and a lot of you people maybe remember that were on the board then. And I just think it's unfair. It's very, to me, I like driving all that driveway better than my own, because I'm just north of that corner on Elm, and it's speed-wise, you know, traffic, it's 55 plus out there on going past my place, and on the curve there, they gotta slow down anyways, and you can see both ways. To the west, there's a couple of trees I'd cut out of there anyways. They're just box elder and they're in the way, and once they're out, you can see fine there, so I don't see where there's any issue there at all. And the county highway department was there, and they said that driveway, it's there, and they said it shouldn't, they won't put another one in because I got one driveway on that parcel already, and they said just when it egresses into a town road, that's where it's got to be, because it's there, and they ain't got an issue with it. And another guy wanted to try buying the land too, and well, we ended up not doing anything at the time because he was going to put it in down farther, but the county won't do that because there's a driveway there already. So what do I do? You know, it's kind of getting to be unsaleable land. Other than if I sell it to somebody who wants to farm it, most people ain't going to pay much to farm it, because it's not the best field. It's good, but it's hard to drain it because it's property around it, and the road drainage is real bad around there. So that's all I got to say about it. Thanks.
Bob Damel, 1005 Marway Court, Oshkosh. I'd just like to take a minute to remind everybody that this week, April 17th through the 21st, is National Work Zone Awareness Week. Tomorrow is Wear Orange Day, so I encourage anybody wear orange, represent work zone awareness. 17 years ago, our department lost 2 employees working on 41. Last year, we suffered another major crash that could have been a lot worse than it was. It's very dangerous working on these roads, and I just want to let everybody know how important it is to slow down in these work zones, not only for county, city, but even the private utility contractors, road construction people out there. They all want to go home at night to their families too. So, thank you.
Trevor Fenrick, 1423 Oak Street, Oshkosh. I'm also the Executive Director for Solutions Recovery. We have been working with the Christine Ann Center for the last several months to come to an agreement about purchasing their facility. Their expansion and increase in services and moving would allow us to do the same thing. So essentially, we've identified many gaps within the housing and continuum of care within recovery services, and we're hoping to be able to expand those services. Christine Ann was identified, we've walked through the building many times, and was identified as a great fit for Solutions to move into. It had a little bit more accessibility, it has more space, and it also gives us an option to increase our administration space. We currently operate transitional housing and a 24/7 peer support program, which is utilized by many county organizations, including other private organizations within the county. So we're really excited to hopefully be able to expand those services. So we're asking that you consider supporting the Christine Ann Center capital campaign. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the back that would like to speak? Anyone else? Anyone else? Not seeing anyone? That part is closed. There's no one on Zoom. Next, we'll go to communication, petition, memorials, accountants, accommodations, resolutions from other counties. Clerks.
Good evening, everyone. We have a number of resolutions from other counties, and these will all be referred to the Legislative Committee. From Barron County, a resolution requesting the state to revise the current real estate transfer fees revenue sharing formula. From Clark County, recommending revision to state wind energy regulations. Columbia County, requesting state to revise solar energy system law. Outagamie County, requesting the state of Wisconsin in the next legislative biennium review and revise its policy on foreign ownership of farmland. Shawano County, requests state of Wisconsin to use a portion of the 2023 budgetary surplus for the maintenance, repair, and replacement of county trunk highway system. Washington County requesting the state of Wisconsin review and revise the entry-level compensation rate for assistant district attorneys. And another one from Washington County requesting the state of Wisconsin review and revise the compensation rate for state public defenders. We received a resolution from the town of Black Wolf, support of Winnebago County American Rescue Plan Act, Strategy and Outcomes Commission, action to equally distribute $145,000 to each municipality located exclusively in Winnebago County. We have two notices of claims, one from Casey Hain for damage to his vehicle caused by a Winnebago County highway truck while plowing snow, and another one from Luke Gale for damage to his vehicle caused by a Winnebago County vehicle while plowing snow at Sunnyview Expo Center. We have 3 commendations tonight. The first one is for Cynthia Krimmel. Cindy Krimmel began her career with Winnebago County as a clerk typist 1 at Whitman Regional Airport on February 2nd, 1993. After 11 and a half years there, she took on a brief stint as a booking clerk at the Sheriff's Office on November 18th, 2004. She joined the Clerk of Court's office February 17th, 2005, spending the remaining 18 years of her career on their front line. Cindy built a rapport with customers that frequented the office. Over the years, this included local attorneys, local law enforcement officials, local process servers, internal county agencies, and citizens of Winnebago County. Offices throughout the county knew they could rely on her being available to field their wide variety of questions coming into the Clerk of Court's office. We wish Cindy the best as she moves on to exciting family moments, vacations, and time spent with family. Congratulations, Cindy. Commendation for Mary E. Krieger. Mary Krieger served as county treasurer since being appointed to the position in 2000. She was originally hired as an account clerk for the office in January 1990 before being appointed to deputy treasurer in May 1992. During her 33 years with the office, she was instrumental in testing and upgrading technology to allow for property information to be more easily accessible by the public online, and her prior experience as a title searcher and closing agent gave her the knowledge to better serve the taxpayers. She was personable and provided exceptional service to the county and community. She will be greatly missed amongst her colleagues, and we wish her the very best in her future endeavors. Commendation for Thomas Machinsky. Tom Machinsky began his career with Winnebago County Department of Social Services on June 16, 1986. During his time with the county, he transitioned to the lead family services therapist in 1999 and later to the youth mental health supervisor in 2010, which is a role he retired from. During Tom's time with the county, he navigated the changes by the state as well as the changes within the county. This includes being part of the merger to a human services department. Tom ensured that both new and old staff, along with community members and partners, always felt welcomed and included. Tom did his best to increase morale and will be missed after almost 37 years of service. And that's it.
Supervisor Powers?
Is it time for H?
It will be.
Okay.
Reports of committees, commissions, and boards. Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a domestic abuse survivor, and as my church is directly across the street from the Christine Ann Center, and we have counted them as our neighbors for many, many years, I'd like to ask Corporation Counsel if there is any path forward and available to this board to reconsider the ARPA, the county ARPA funds, also known as Spirit funds. Thank you.
If you look in the rule book, it indicates when a motion or a question has once been determined, any member with the prevailing side, if he or she was present and voted, may move for reconsideration of the vote, but such motion shall be made and acted upon at the same or next succeeding adjourned business meeting and shall not thereafter be made except by unanimous vote.
So we're already too late because no papers have been put forward to this board in time to be considered. Is that correct?
It does say in the rule, shall not thereafter be made except by unanimous vote, which would mean if you bring it up again, if you can, it would have to be done by unanimous vote.
Could I do that now? Is this the wrong time?
If you can give me a minute so I can further look into this.
Sure.
But I'm thinking you have missed it, but let me look into this.
Thank you.
Well, she's looking into that. Supervisor Defferting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just giving another reminder that this upcoming Friday, April 21st, I'm going to be heading down to the Holiday Inn Madison at the American Center for the Chief Justice Summit on Mental Health. And it's going to be opening up with a forum in regards to mental health in Wisconsin and with justice partner and legislative perspectives. And that's going to be moderated by the Honorary Randy Koshnick, Director of the State Courts. That'll be a forum with Attorney General Josh Call, District Attorney Eric Toney, State Senator Jesse James, State Representative Dora Drake, and some public defenders, as well as Chief Dean Smith, City of Oshkosh Police Department and President of the Wisconsin Chief of Police Association. And then there's going to be some more forums later in the day. We're going to have a break, but in the afternoon we're going to have be examining mental health courts and implementing mental health courts throughout the state of Wisconsin. There's going to be a couple of counties that will be there: Dane County, Jefferson County, Manitowoc County, Kenosha, La Crosse, and Marinette counties. There's going to be a representative or a judge from all of those counties to explain a little bit about what their models are, and we'll be taking a look at what Winnebago County will be doing going forward with that. On April 27th, the Wisconsin Counties Association's Judicial and Public Safety Committee will be meeting at the Holiday Inn in Stevens Point. I have not received a packet yet regarding an agenda, but if you have any questions or concerns for me, by all means, please reach out to me. Thank you.
Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to let the county board know that the ad hoc committee structure task force met for the first time on March 29th. I was elected chairman, and Supervisor Defferting was elected vice chairman. And so we're really excited to get to work. We discussed a number of topics about the size and scope of what we'll be looking at. We will be meeting again on April 27th, and I just want to give a heads up. We do have an agenda item there that if we do pass it, would ask for input for county board supervisors about their thoughts on the current committee structure and if we need to do any sort of revising. So I just want to put that out there. April 27th, 6 p.m. at the CAB building in room 120. Thank you.
Supervisor Hran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to state that last Wednesday there were a total of 5 supervisors, 3 current supervisors, 2 past supervisors, and 3 human services staff that went to Madison to basically lobby for human services, and specifically it was mental health care. There was also one other outstanding thing that happened, and that was discovering that there is still DOS internet being used specifically in Winnebago County. And I know that one of the senators said that the ARPA funds that they have is going to be very specifically set to update all of the internet projects that need to be done around the state. But it was really very interesting. We were able to meet with, I think probably all of our representatives. Rachel, Nate, we had someone who came in for, she's from Menasha. She's the representative for Menasha, and I can't remember her name for the moment. And then we had 2 senators who were represented. Nate Gustafson was there as well. But yes, I found that what our intent and purpose was to lobby for the mental health services. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Supervisor Hens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to keep the board aware of the Sawyer Creek floodplain and retention mapping that we have been trying to work on, trying to figure out what to do with. Last Friday we met. We actually had some landowners there. We also had a former member of previous Plan and Zoning Committee who shared some of his knowledge from when he was on there. Over 2 years ago, it was voted to go to public hearing. It was put on our agenda to discuss bringing it to public hearing. So we voted unanimously not to bring it to a public hearing. We discussed whether we could go any farther or not, but because the item was listed as going forward with a public hearing, we didn't want to overstep our bounds. So next month, we will be voting on whether to accept that amendment, and more than likely, I would guess, seeing as we voted unanimously not to bring it to public hearing, we will probably be voting to not accept that amendment. So we will not be seeing Sawyer Creek floodplain business in front of this board. So just so everybody knows where it's at, if you have any people out in your areas who were wondering about that, that's where we're at with it, and we're just waiting until next month so we can do this the right way.
Supervisor Wise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here to talk about the ad hoc task force. on per diems. That's a mouthful. Meeting. We've had 2 meetings so far. The first meeting, I was elected chairman. Betsy was elected vice chairman on it. And we are trying to meet about every 2 weeks because we have a deadline coming up for July 24th that we'd like to pass this on to judiciary. But anyway, we have had 2 meetings. Our next meeting is on April the 24th. We're going to be discussing a possible ordinance for changing us to self-organized counties. Probably a little premature to discuss it, but we will be discussing it on the 24th in detail. So if anybody would like to make it there, it's right at the same place at the 120. What is it? Suite 120, 112 Otter Street, I guess it is. So that's all. I wanted to let everybody know. Thank you.
Back to corporate counsel.
I have looked at Robert's rules, and you cannot do this at this point because you adopted the agenda. It was by affirmative vote, and it specifically says an affirmative vote to adopt an agenda may not be reconsidered. So it wasn't noticed, so you cannot do it.
County Executives Report.
Good evening. I'd like to start by acknowledging the empty seat of Supervisor Mike Norton. He dedicated his life to listening and serving the most vulnerable population in Winnebago County. He had a heart for those less fortunate and was passionate about their causes for over 20 years in Winnebago County Board. My deepest condolences go out to the Norton family. I was going to talk about Go Orange tomorrow, but my highway commissioner did a good job of doing it. Don't worry, Bob. Thank you. It was better coming from you. So if you have something orange, please wear it in memory of the 2 highway workers that we lost and for the safety of everybody that's going to be working out on the roads this summer. We all know orange barrel season is upon us. I wanted to thank you for your unanimous support of the wage adjustments. We still have a long way to go, but the message has been received loud and clear that you are willing to do what is needed for our employees. I, as well as our employees, would like to express our gratitude for your willingness to give us the tools we need to succeed. I would also like to thank you for the creation of the Spirit Fund and the approval of the projects that followed. A few updates I wanted to give you on the projects throughout the county. First, starting with the 980 housing project. It has come in over budget. We have decided to make the best of it by moving forward with 3 units on the property. We will be keeping the 2-bedroom trailer in the meantime. I expected the cost of materials to be high, and if we needed more units to be built in the future, we will be set up to do so. I'm simply not comfortable spending any more money on this project that has already been approved. I believe this will deal with the issue at hand. When the units came in at $180,000 a piece, I thought that was high until I found out the tiny houses cost us roughly $175 or not cost us, but cost them roughly $175,000 per unit on their build. So it's just simply roughly within the cost of today's market. The sheriff's boathouse has possibly reached an impasse as well. The quote went over budget, was then reduced to come in slightly $5,000 under budget, but has no contingency allowance. This simply is not enough for me to comfortably move forward on the project. I'm exploring a permanent spot in the Pioneer Marina and will be looking at the cost to demo the existing boathouse. The Pioneer option will still provide us with a fast launch time, much faster than trailering, and is acceptable to both me and the sheriff, who is also not comfortable asking for more money on this project. Implementation of Resource X, a priority budgeting tool, has begun. This work will allow us to dig deeper into the programs we offer and align them with strategic priorities which we will set up. The strategic planning will begin in May, and we will be conducting workshops with the county board for your input on the strategic plan. The one question I'm asking you to start considering is this: why does county government exist? Start thinking about that. With the priority-based budgeting tool implementation, I've begun the budget process for 2024 already. If you want to get a head start of the philosophy that I will be using to prepare the 2024 budget, I'm recommending 2 books if you're the reading type. Number 1 is City on the Line by Andrew Klein. He was a finance director that came into Baltimore that turned them around in the Great Recession right around 2008. And the other book is Start With Why by Simon Sinek. Is what is the purpose of why we exist and what we function. And those are 2 books. I'll read that again if you want to know where my philosophy on the budget is going to be coming from. Again, that was City on the Line by Andrew Klein, K-L-E-I-N-E, and Start With Why by Simon Sinek, S-I-M-O-N-S-I-N-E-K. We are now moving forward with our merit pay plan adjustments. We will be working diligently to create a new system that allows our employees to move along the pay range, preventing future compression. We are going to be putting a lot of work on that in very short order with plenty of input. Next week, we are beginning our Tyler Munis upgrade. Tyler Munis is our enterprise financial software that runs our finance and HR functions. We are currently 5 versions behind. This upgrade is well needed. But I think we're going to have a lot of new things to learn. Correct, Mike? All right. The facility condition assessment is underway. McKinstry has been hired to go through our buildings and assess their conditions as well as their energy efficiencies. We will have a detailed look into what our deferred maintenance issues are and use that information to determine where to invest and possibly divest in our buildings. With the age and multitude of buildings we own, I do expect some crucial decisions to come before this board in the near future. It'll be nice to have a plan. We are doing a lot of great work behind the scenes, and you have been giving us the tools to make this happen. I thank you. The staff thanks you. Together, we are setting ourselves up to accomplish great things. When I talk to other executives and other administrators throughout the state of Wisconsin, and it's hard for them to fathom the amount of large projects that we are dealing with at the same time. And I do want to give kudos to staff that has been doing a fantastic job managing all those, keeping us in line, and getting all these changes through at once. This board meeting is my 2-year anniversary, and we've come a long, long way in those 2 years, and I'm very proud of the team and very grateful with our relationship that we have to work together. Thank you.
Supervisor Hintz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. County Executive Damel, I just wanted to ask, moving forward with Pioneer, are we looking at something that's actually going to be secure and enclosed, hopefully, or because I know how bad it sounds leaving everything out in the open, and that was how it was explained to us by the sheriff as well.
Are you referencing the boathouse?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to be very careful to answer this.
Well, I'm just saying, yeah, going forward, I'm hoping that we're looking at it.
There is no neighborhood watch like a marina family, first and foremost. Marinas are usually housed by people there 24/7. There are people that sleep on their boats, and that's good. So I'm not really concerned about the safety. Wet boat house, you hold your breath for 10 seconds and you're inside. So we explored other areas. Maybe we can look at a boathouse anywhere that's kind of secluded, I think is more dangerous. That being said, if we're not going to spend roughly the $500,000 to repair this boathouse, we'll have some money to take a look at. Can we do overhang over the slip? The Pioneer Marina has been very willing to work with us. They're going to be willing to take us to look at what slips that work the best. I'm sure we can look at some kind of infrastructure. Don, I know in the original discussion you talked about some kind of a housing over a dock. We can look at things like that. Safety I'm not worried about. We can put awnings or something around in case we do have to exhume a body from the lake. We do that currently when we have accidents in the highway, so these things happen. But I think I'm comfortable with it, and I believe it was $2,000 a year was the rent, which is a lot cheaper than the boathouse.
Thank you.
Supervisor Dowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hi, County Executive. Nice to see you again. Last month, I know you weren't here, but we did hear from Winnebago County Help, Oshkosh Kids Foundation, Habitat for Humanity, and Covey. And I was reminded that the county had applied for and distributed $10 million worth of grants. And I'm just curious to know if that's something we could do again, since there seems to be more needs in our community. Is that something that you would consider pursuing again?
Absolutely. Part of the Neighborhood Improvement Grant Fund was a grant coordinator, and we wanted to make sure that those monies came in, that everything was secured with the state of Wisconsin before we move forward with that. Since that has been done, since that is going out, we did do an interview for a grant coordinator. She has said she has accepted the position, but I don't want to say who that is yet.
Sure.
One of the functions of that is not only to create the task force on homelessness, to take a look at some of these, but also to look at other funding that's out there, to kind of capture some of that, bring some of that in.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much.
Supervisor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, I was just wondering on that boathouse project, in terms of the sheriff's position on, I know maybe you can't answer for the sheriff, but you said that he's okay with the marina option and the response time?
Yeah, of course, if this thing would have came in with budget, he would have preferred that. The original proposal that we brought to Personnel Finance was $277,000.
Right.
This bloated above that, but yes, he is okay with that. That is where we have operated the last 2 seasons with our boat.
So they don't have an issue then with with the bridge being up potentially on Main Street, and excuse me, the access road along the river's been cut off now because of the housing development going in down there. And I guess my concern in bringing that up outside this forum is that with that housing density down there, you're going to have increased traffic, and you only have one access point now to the marina, which is south of the stadium. So that's more limited access than we had before to that marina, and I'm wondering whether response times be further cut down.
We don't think it's going to be cut down much. Lights and sirens grants you a little bit of extra flexibility. Bob, I don't want to speak for bridge tenders, but I don't know if they work with you to let you know they're coming or not. But we can make sure that that bridge is down so they would know. That's a good point. Yep, because we operate those. Correct.
Were there any other options considered besides the boathouse and the marina?
It's funny you should say that. When this first came across, it went to Personnel and Finance with $277,000. I think I stated that before. It went to Personnel and Finance without my signature on it because I wasn't comfortable with $277,000 on a boathouse that is not very big. It's a large garage. It was a lot of money for that. I did a lot of exploring on other boathouses. There was one for $250,000 that needed probably about $1 million worth of work to get it up and running. The DNR is not going to let us put in new wet boathouses anywhere anytime soon. So as far as the options, this was it.
Speaking of the DNR, I noticed they built 5 new storage units up at Silent Bay, and we have a parcel of land just north of Sherman Road there. And I reached the idea that maybe the DNR would work with us in terms of storing the boat in one of those units up there in exchange for, maybe a land swap or some swap plus cash or something like that for a long-term lease on one of those storage units. That's closer to the sheriff's office, and they would only have to trailer the boat about 100 feet to get to the landing, to get the boat in the water. I would think they'd be able to get on the lake faster than by driving all the way down to that marina.
I think the purpose is to not have to trailer the boat at all. Is the fastest way. And
okay, I'm all for what you and the sheriff believe would be the best option here. I just want to make sure everything's been considered.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Supervisor Wise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Executive Damo, a question for you, and probably this is the only time it's ever been asked. The resolution 167 had a lot of talk speaking behind us here, and I appreciate what Supervisor Powers was trying to do on that. I was wondering if you have, or maybe it's too late on that, if you have or you can, if you would or not, do a partial veto on that line, that one line.
Well, I wouldn't, because the only thing I could do is veto the whole thing, and I don't want to jeopardize the Spirit Fund for that. Maybe there's something we could do to consider where it went to. I don't necessarily completely disagree with the amendment. I think I would have liked it more in that 50% in the middle. I think there's still some flexibility for some government identified projects that have to do with housing. If you followed along with the Spirit Commission, there was roughly $6 million I had in there for housing and initiatives, and another $1 million for veteran housing initiatives for a transitional housing piece. So as long as they're through county programs, you know, if it's a contracted service that we do, I think it's still viable to do something like that, but with the oversight. Like, I agree there has to be oversight. So no, I didn't want to jeopardize the Spirit Fund in its entirety. And I'm not sure if there's any kind of amendment can be made in the future. I don't know. As always, I will respect the will of this board and work with whatever I have to work with.
Thank you. I hesitated even bringing it up, but
Sure.
I just thought maybe that would be an avenue. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Supervisor Harrison.
Well, thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Also, same area there at the talk, as if you remember the last time when we did vote on that, and I was adamantly against that because I've been around the nonprofits, 12 or 13 of them so far. I was reminded that there's over 1,000 in Winnebago County, if you take a really look at them, and we cut them out. And I know at the last meeting, your assistant was there helping us, and they did leave the door kind of open that we could look at some of these as government projects or whatever. But there's so many of them out there. I have gotten so many emails that were really felt bad that the county turned their back on them that way. And I just think it's something we need to look at again. They were a good majority of those people in those 1,000 were affected by the pandemic. And that's what the spirit is supposed to be. And I know they said at that time that if they came up with a government needed project, or if the board of the ARPA group could decide on it, they had an opportunity to maybe get it open again. Because I think maybe we acted too quick to take that away from them, because there's a lot of needs out there. And if you don't, take a look at just half of them. There's a lot. We heard a couple here today, and some of them were banking on that kind of that money. They heard from other counties had given their money to things like that. And it's very important that we don't forget that part of it, because they were really affected by the pandemic. And I don't want to lose that idea, but I'm still wish we hadn't done that. So make my comment.
Yeah, and I always try to be open-minded and understand both sides. I do understand being careful with nonprofits. Some nonprofits are very politically charged. Some nonprofits have ideals that don't belong in county government. That being said, I think there's still some things that we can identify in that 50% that help. I'm a huge believer in communities, large communities, small government. Government, and I hate to say this to the county executive, isn't always the answer. But making your communities strong and less dependent on government is. That is why I proposed that in the first place, because I want to make sure our communities are strong, because if they do better, it's less stress on our resources. So yeah, I mean, we will look at that. We'll try to maximize what we can with that 50%. And if there's a way for us to figure out how to move some of that, I'm sure that the commission would be willing to take a look at that, and I'm sure the board would be willing to consider that. But I do understand the original intent of the amendment. But again, I do believe in strong communities, and I think there are ways that we can look at some of those projects. Keep in mind, the board still has to approve every project that comes out of that commission. The commission has no authority to spend. So all those, we will still have the oversight of this board to see if this is something we agree with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Nelson.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you for pulling the plug on that boathouse project. That stuck in my craw from the time we approved that funding, and the thought that a boathouse is safe and secure is Not if you're wearing a swimming suit, it isn't safe and secure. So I think there's way better options out there. I still don't know if the marina is the only option, but I appreciate you saving the county's money and looking for better options. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that. I know that the sheriff does too. He wasn't comfortable with the price tag. I think where it was is the highest we were willing to go, maybe a little bit further than we were comfortable with to get it done. And if we can't get it done in there, and county projects rarely come in under budget, and $5,000 is not enough for contingency for us. So we appreciate it, and I think me and the sheriff are both on the same page on that.
Thank you.
Supervisor Bender.
I agree the nonprofits are basically essential to our community, but I also agree that we have a lot of seniors living on a fixed income that are too proud to ask for any money. I got an aunt that makes less than $1,800 a month, and she gets by. You know, she doesn't eat the greatest, she drives an older car. I can't ask her to basically pay more county taxes because I'm going to take some of this ARPA money and I'm going to give it to the nonprofits and then basically borrow to fix buildings in this county when we have that money to do county work. The city of Oshkosh got $21 million. How much did they give to the nonprofits? I don't think any that I read about. So, you know, you have to take care of the county's business first. And if there's money left and we got the county's work done and we're not going to ask the taxpayers to pay for more expenses because we're borrowing, I'm happy to give them all the money that's left. But I'm not going to ask my aunt to pay for money for the nonprofits when she can barely pay for her own expenses. So I feel for them. I write checks to them out of my personal money. It's my money. I can give it to whoever I want. But I can't ask her to basically make a sacrifice to them when she basically barely has enough to support herself.
I'm going to respond to that bluntly. The city of Oshkosh, first of all, gave 20% of their money to nonprofits. And if you really want to affect your aunt, we reform government. We stop using it to keep raising taxes. We look at ways of other revenue sources and getting our costs in line. Putting this money in an operational budget or a general fund, if you would, to just pay for future costs we have without actually figuring out how to control those future costs is only kicking that can down the line. You know, so that's why I'm proud that we passed money for a strategic plan for priority-based budgeting so we can look at the priorities of our government, why we're going to go through the question of why do we exist so we can put ourselves back in the confines of what county government should be so we can long-term make her taxes go down. Paying for a capital improvement plan for a year and a half, 2 years, isn't going to make any difference. But figuring out long-term together, I think we're really going to make that impact.
But if we take $8 million and put that towards the highway, that's a 10-year capital improvement plan. So that's 10 years that we're basically going to use that money for tax reductions. You know, the city of Oshkosh went up 4.5%. The school taxes went up 11%. Her Social Security went up 8%. So once again, she had to cut her budget, right? Because she didn't have enough money. She had to basically cut her budget so she could pay her bills. I can't ask her to continue to do that.
Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess the outstanding question, John, is how much money do we have into the boathouse that we're now not going to use?
I would say roughly $80,000, and there'll still be some money that we'll have to spend to tear it down. If you don't mind, I think Director Elder is here, would have a more precise, if you want that answer.
Well, that's close enough.
Okay.
Is that property, what do we do with it now?
Well, remember, we were spending $500,000 to rebuild a boathouse that's not on our property. We are renting that from the city, and it's city-owned property in the right-of-way of the railroad. So it's a $500,000 investment on land that's not ours in the right-of-way of a railroad company.
Oh, okay.
Another reason it came to Personnel and Finance without my signature.
I certainly think you made the right decision. Okay. Yeah,
thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I do not have any more lights on.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, my report is Supervisor Bean, Supervisor Nichols, and Supervisor Gabberts asked to be excused this evening. So, go on with that. The only other thing I got is more or less what County Executive Damel had to say is about Supervisor Norton true sympathy out to his family in that. It's too bad that that happened. A lot of us, you know, right away we were really, well, it's too bad all the way around, but a lot of things we were worried about what did happen or whatever, but it was all natural causes in case those of you who haven't heard. The family does not live around here. Some of them do, some don't, and so they're not real close. So as of right now, there is no funeral plans whatsoever. I did talk to one of his good friends, and he said they're talking about possibly having a celebration of life on his birthday, which isn't until in June, so who knows what's going to happen between now and then. I have gotten a card. I asked Karen Powers to go ahead if anyone would want to put something into it, and it would go to the county park. And yes, it'd be in his memory, but I asked Adam from back there, the parks director, and they would get like a tree or something and put in the park in memory of him, but it still belonged to the county, but in memory of Mike Norton, which he was big in the parks and that. Yes, there was some things that went on here a few months ago and this and that, but I think a lot of us can look in the mirror and we can find things every now and then that aren't just right. So that's why we got the rose for him, is because the old saying is there's a thorn in every rose. Well, I couldn't find any thorn in that one, but Mike was quite a guy. Didn't have a lot, but if he had his shirt off his back and he could take it off, and if you wanted it, he would surely give it to you. I know he umpired with some, John tells me more than one story about umpiring with him, so he was out there. I know that there's a lot of different feelings about him, but still you got to remember it's not just him, it's his family. Mike is gone now. He was a colleague of ours, and hopefully that's what you remember as the good part about him. So like I said, the card is back there. It'll be this month, probably next month, and then after that Karen will give it to me after the meetings. Then after that, then I'll be giving it to the parks, and they can go ahead and hopefully get enough to get a tree. Tree's a good sized tree for a memorial. Will cost you $200-300 at least. So I asked corporate counsel. You can put in any amount you want. Put in $1 if you want. If you want to put in $200, you can put in. It isn't because he is not on the board anymore whatsoever. So like when we did, we could only go up to $25. But being that he's not a member of the board or any way, any amount can be put in there. So I just want you to think about the good part of Mike and also the Norton family. So thank you. Supervisor Cox.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to pull 2 items from the consent calendar.
We're not on that yet.
Sir?
We're not on there yet. Just hold on. We'll be there in a minute. Got to get my page turned here. Consent agenda. Now, I want to remind you, being that this is only the second month, this consent agenda can go ahead. If you see something on there you don't like, can be pulled, or questions can be asked about it. And it can be done up until the motion is seconded and it is passed. Once it's passed, then we're done with it. So you can ask questions about it now and go ahead, and we'll try to find the answer out for you. Or if you feel strongly it should be pulled, there's no motion on the floor yet, but so I'm open for a motion for the consent agenda. Motion's made for consent agenda. Supervisor Cox.
I'd like to have 2 items pulled from the consent agenda. Okay. Item 1 and item 2, the county executive's appointments and the approval of the minutes for March 7th and March 21st.
1 and 2, okay.
That's 2 line items.
All right. Anything else?
No, I'm fine.
If there's nothing else, I'm open for a second on the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made and seconded.
Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Nay. Carried. We'll go back to the approval of proceedings from May 7th, 2023 and March 21st, 2023 meetings. Just hold on. Just hold on, we gotta catch up here. Okay. Yes, we're on number one now, approval of proceedings from March 7th and March 21st, 2023 board meetings. I believe I heard a motion. I don't know who it come from or. Okay. Well, don't say amended on here.
Can I just ask?
Sure.
Are you
Yes.
referring to the ones that were actually sent out and then the ones that are on your desk tonight? Or do you have corrections?
Talk into your mic so they can all hear you.
Sorry. Supervisor Fari, are you referring the first set of proceedings that went out were incorrectly printed? Okay, so you have a correction to the proceedings? Okay.
Okay. So you have a motion made to approve the correct. Okay, there's a motion on the floor to go ahead and approve the corrected minutes from March 7th and March 21, 2023. Is there a second?
Second.
And it's seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? Supervisor Swan.
The corrections are the missing text, I presume, on page 165 and one other area. In the first one, is that it?
For the first set of proceedings that
Yeah.
went out, every other page was missing.
Okay.
Supervisor Cox.
I move to approve March 21st on the second set of minutes that were sent out.
I've already got a motion made by Vice Chairman Fari to approve both of them.
Okay,
Corrected.
then I'll take a second on it.
And you're seconding it. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. All right. Now we got corrected.
I've got the correct one. The only thing is, I have them all on one.
Great.
So.
So what now?
Tell me, Julie.
Supervisor Cox, are you okay with voting on all three committees at once, or did you want them separated to three separate votes?
Well, we can take them all based on the one that you sent out. Okay.
Not the proceedings. We're done with the proceedings. Now I'm
Oh,
on
I'm
to county executives' appointments. Are you okay with voting on the ADRC committee, the Solid Waste Management Board, and the Winnebago Library Board as one vote, or do I need to separate them?
Separate them. So they can be called out individually.
Okay, then I'm going to have the county executive come up and do his appointments, which should already been done, but, okay, county executive?
Dear members of the County Board of Supervisors, below my appointments to boards and commissions. The ADRC Committee, Jim Lohr of Neenah, term expiring August 31st of 2025.
Motion made and seconded to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Carried. One nay.
Solid Waste Board, I'm reappointing Supervisor Jim Wise and Shana Zastera, and citizen members Gerald Conrad of Oshkosh and Michael Easker of Neenah for 3-year terms to expire in April of 2026.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried.
Winnebago Library Board, I'm appointing Supervisor Doug Zelmer to serve as the County Board of Supervisor Representative.
Motion made and seconded for the approval. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried.
That's the way it should be done.
Ordinance number 219-042023, amend Winnebago County General Code Section 7.14, Parent 8 to replace the word possible with definition legally compliant. Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion that we adopt Resolution 219-042023.
Motion made and seconded. Supervisor Bender.
If I could ask the Highway Commissioner to give us his opinion on this, on if he would recommend us voting, I'd value his opinion on it.
Good evening. One thing is our access policy was adopted in 2000, and some of the things we look at when we based that up, when it was adopted, was best engineering practices. It was to promote safe ingress and egress to our county roads. So that's our aim. Our aim is not to put a burden on town roads or ours. We want to make safe passage for everybody. In my experience, we've never been able to not work out a access. This certain situation we're talking about is one of a kind. I've never had any issues with these accesses. We try to work out any possible situation like this. We try to work out something that works out for everybody. This access we're talking about with possible, anytime we can put it on a secondary road, that's where we would like to put that. It's a less traveled road than a county road. So we feel it's the safest place to put those. If there's circumstances that deem it's not safe, we will look at those. Things we look at are sight stopping distances, locations on a curve, speed limits, daily traffic counts. These are all things that we base our policy on. And situations like this, we have a variance policy. If the policy is, or if the application is denied, there is a variance process to go through zoning. So we have an option when these are denied. Whether this change as proposed is going to help the situation here, I don't see it helping us with this matter. It's just going to complex the whole situation with these. We have no problem talking to the local townships with these. I have not seen any access policies from any of the locals. It's one thing I want to do is try to find these and what theirs is based upon. I don't know what any of the local towns, what they're basing theirs upon. But one thing we got to realize is that, when somebody comes for an access for us, we deal with the property owner only. So we don't deal with, what ifs. What if we would do this? What if we do that? We have to deal with the property owner and very specifics with this. So, the change of this, it's not going to affect the way we operate. We're still going to do the safest possible option for the county and the locals. So.
Supervisor Dowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask a clarifying question. Are existing properties grandfathered into this, or would they have to change?
If the parcels were created prior to the adoption of the ordinance in 2000, they do qualify.
Okay, so just to clarify, like the gentleman that spoke earlier, he does not have to move his driveway?
Specifically to Mr. Wojan, I'm taking, is,
I would assume so.
Okay, so-
I don't recall his name. I apologize.
so that situation there, he already has an existing access to the parcel.
Okay.
So we were asked by a potential purchaser to purchase, or to ask about an access.
Okay.
We don't have that right to disclose to anybody but the property owner. So that's why we exclusively went through the property owner with these, with such a request. So, I mean, it does have an existing access. Whether it's legally compliant, you know, it's there, it's been there for, Mr. Wojan, 100 years, 50 years, roughly, it's been there. So I'm considering it's compliant.
Grandfathered.
It's been there that long.
Okay, thank you for
So,
clarifying.
if that
I
makes-
appreciate.
okay.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had put on everyone's desk a little background information on this word change. And on the back side of it, you can see a map of this existing property. And you can see how much road access we have to County Road M and how little there is on Grandview Road. Now, it shows where the grandfathered access is for agricultural access. And I want everybody to realize that County Road M and Grandview are in the same place right now as they were in 1862. They were not called that by those names back then, but the roads have not moved in that amount of time. So the mode of transportation back then was quite a bit different than it is today. So I would like to, to reiterate, this change in the ordinance is not specifically about this property. This change, in changing the word from possible, which is a term that is not clearly defined. It could either mean legally compliant or it could mean physically capable. I think the wording should be legally compliant. And the reason I feel that way is it's a matter of safety. The towns, all of the towns in this county have done their best to come up with ordinances and driveway access codes that are going to apply for safe ingress and egress to the properties. And one of the key elements in that is keeping the driveway access away from intersections. Our current county code says 600 feet from an intersection. A lot of the towns are less than that, but they should never be put in right at the intersection, which is what would happen in this particular case. So making this word change, I believe will provide safer access to this property and will provide more cooperation between the county and the towns. And, really when it comes right down to it, the goal of both the county and the town is for safe driveway access. Thank you.
Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This incident, it exposed a flaw in the ordinance, and all we're trying to do is fix it. So hopefully these incidents like this don't come up again. Thank you.
Supervisor Nelson.
My concern is the legally compliant. Is that eliminate our highway commissioner here from utilizing common sense to put in a driveway, legally compliant. I think there's more to this than what we're actually seeing. I drove through the town of Winchester prior to the election. I think every yard had a sign in there. They obviously had a pretty robust election, and I'm wondering if we're just being used as pawns to try to come up with some legal technicality to eliminate common sense as to where the safest place for that driveway is. And if we're granting more power to the towns than what the county has, I think we're going in the wrong direction. I believe we ought to listen to our highway commissioner and take his advice.
Corporate counsel, can you answer that?
I was asked to go to the highway department regarding this. And as I've told everyone who was at that highway committee meeting, including Supervisor Miller, this language that he's proposing, I can tell you, yes, it's legal, but there are ramifications to it. I think, again, it could make the highway commissioner's job more difficult. But again, my role is this legal or is it not? And the way he's posed it, it is, when it says, as opposed to taking possible and putting legally compliant, as you've indicated, Supervisor Nelson, I would say that is giving more power to the local situation. But it's legal. It's your decision as to how you want to vote.
Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also sit on the Highway Committee and am aware of the proposal. It was discussed at length at Highway Committee. Now, being a retired town board chairman, I'll give you my take on this a little bit from the town's perspective. What you have there is an ag access that is very old. And if you want to convert that access to residential use, then it needs to comply with current ordinance. So that means it's not going to be legal because you don't have a setback from the corner. So the difference is grandfathered for ag. If you want to change the use, it now becomes current ordinance. So I think this request for the word change is a responsible thing to do. Because obviously, where else are going to put access on a town road? That's it right there. The access will have to come from the county road. And I think this kind of puts that position in place. So I don't have a problem with what the town is proposing. Thank you.
Supervisor Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was the one that went against this for a couple of reasons. One, I went because I trust our commissioner for what he had. Second, I think it's going to open up a bunch more doors for more things to happen, because when you put legally as possible, that kind of makes it, you know, you got to talk to lawyers, you got to do that. The next one was because this is an if. This person might want to buy this property, so we're doing it so that he can have that. But the other one has been using for farming and agriculture for a long time. If we were to do this and they did that, what if he doesn't sell that property? You know, there's a lot of ifs here. And then it comes down to one person. And God bless that we want to try to help him, but we got to think about what's going to happen after we decide all this. What is going to open up, what other doors are going to, people are say, hey, this isn't right, this isn't wrong, this is what, you know, and this is going to open the door for, take it out of your hands now, and then now legally something's going to happen that way. And I think just to do for one possibility, if the person were to buy that property, he could come forward and talk to you then. But he isn't buying it, he might buy it, and so we might want to do this because of that, right? Is that kind of what I understand? And that's, I don't know if every time somebody comes to the board and says, can we change something because I might do something, or I might something in the future, you can deal with it when the person owns the property, right? Because the person doesn't want to do two access now because he owns it, but he doesn't want to do that. So I voted against it, and I think it's something we should not get in the policy of doing. Thank you.
Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't want to talk about this, but Supervisor Nelson prodded me into it. The way it sits now, where this driveway has to be, is very unsafe. And if we don't change this, this is where the driveway is going to be. So we have to change the law so we can put the driveway in the safest place. You can, every single person here can see that this is the safest place, right here in the middle. You got a curve so that the traffic is going slow both ways. It's the farthest distance. You're that, or you're right on the intersection on a curve. It's, any sane person can understand where the safest place is. And if we don't change this.
Supervisor Sins. Yes, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually wanted to ask Supervisor Fari, because of your knowledge that you just shared with us. Were you saying that as it stands right now, this agricultural access, if it were to be changed to a residential, this could not be changed to a residential access. It would revert to the current law, and they would have to go in the middle.
That's certainly been the case in the town of Vinland, and I assume the town of Winchester has almost parallel ordinances. Most towns have the same driveway ordinance, access ordinance, that kind of thing. And the reason is ag use is very intermittent, very infrequent. Residential use is far more frequent. So the safety issue comes into play. So certainly in the town of Vinland, I assume the board would have to consider whether or not it certainly wouldn't meet the ordinance. So the only question is, once you're no longer ag and you're residential, you need to meet the new standards. That's the question.
Clarification on that, obviously coming from city planning and zoning, it's a little different. Okay, and then if I could go over to Mr. Damo. Did I hear you correctly when you said that if we pass this, this will result in more variance requests? Or I thought I was trying to. When you were talking about the variance part, I was just trying to keep up with what you were saying while I was taking notes.
No, I mean, certain circumstances like this. I mean, one thing is we got to look at when we were approached for it to add an access to the parcel. So when I look at the ordinance, it met the ordinance that it had a existing access to that parcel. So it already met the criteria. It had an existing access. So that's what we base that upon. It has an existing access. So whether it's ag use, which it is right now, so I'm assuming that's a legally compliant, right? I'm assuming it's legally compliant the way it sits right now. For ag use, correct. That's what we base this upon. What if we build a Quick Trip there? Is it the same? Is it the same if we build a McDonald's on that corner? Is it the safest place to put it on that curve, in between those curves? That's what we're looking at. We're basing upon what ifs. And that's all this is what ifs. What if we do this? What if we do that? Just like Mr. Harrison said, hey, today we want to build a house. Hey, the economy's changed, lumber prices went up. We're not going to do that anymore. We're changing pace. We're going to put a gas station in. You already gave me the access for this. So this is what a lot of this is based upon. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I get people coming in all the time. All I want is a farm access here. As soon as we give it, a month later, there's a house being built. So when we look at these, I mean, we followed the county ordinance for this access. It had an existing access to it. So if it's not legally compliant, what is legally compliant to town of Vinland, town of Rushford, town of Winchester? That's what we need to find out. What is legally compliant? What meets that? That situation out there, I mean, could we go cut the trees to create a better vision area there? Is that, I mean, what are we basing that it's unsafe?
And that was actually what I was going to ask you next about the legally compliant part of that. That is that phrase, legally compliant, do we have a definition at the county level of
I don't
what's
know what legally compliant,
I mean, are we actually then giving, like we heard from someone who spoke before the meeting, are we actually giving away our county jurisdiction to the municipality? That,
I mean potentially every township could have a different access ordinance.
Yes.
So, you know, and that's where, right, the communication between the townships, right, but there is so many roads that intersect our county roads that, you know, what is legally compliant? So how do we determine what is legally compliant now? So, you know, obviously we heard, you know, we have to call the township to find out. Well, is there a master plan? What is that we can just go say, hey, I mean, the DOT, we use maps all the time. It's already mapped out. We just go on there and look, yep, legally compliant, we're good to go. So, I mean, we don't have that. I don't know what to work off of legally compliant. I mean, we have the variance process. If Mr. Wojan was denied, he has that option to go for a variance. And that's why we have that. I don't know if locals have a variance process. Doesn't sound like there is. So what they say, that's it. Now the burden's put on the county. I mean, we talked about this, how long that road's been there. Hey, traffic counts go up every day. The trucks are getting bigger. What's to say the house gets built in there? 10 years from now, traffic counts are, you know, 5,000 cars on that road. Now what? Now we have a safety issue. How do we fix this? So these are all things that we look at. We don't come in just to make people miserable. They can't have their dream home. That's not our option. I mean, regardless what happens with this, I have a job to do to provide safe ingress and egress to our county roads, and that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Defferding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You'll have to forgive me here. There might be something here that I'm missing, or perhaps there's been some history here. I do remember this intersection because I traveled this intersection a couple of times when I was on the Planning and Zoning Committee. That you know, we passed through that. Yeah, it's and I appreciate Supervisor Miller for providing with that history in regards to, like, you know, this was built in 1865. A lot has changed since then, and because of that, traffic has changed. And I'm looking at that intersection, and that intersection sucks. Have we even looked into, like, putting in a roundabout there?
That very well could be. I mean, we look at crash data from there. There's not a lot of crash history there. Potentially, that could be something that comes down that we look at that.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, this is something where I look at this and I'm like, if we put in a roundabout there, I almost feel like this whole debate could be moot. Because that point, all we're doing then is just changing the flow of traffic. And with that changing the flow of traffic, we're actually making the intersection safer. And that's the whole reason why we're seeing a lot more roundabouts, is because it's just a safer way to travel. And we're keeping the traffic moving, and we're reducing the amount of lethal collisions. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Supervisor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to just ask a question to anyone who can answer this in this room. Basically, the change from possible to legally compliant, is that going to have the effect, does anyone believe, that will open up access to more private property parcels in the county, or work to limit more access?
I mean,
or don't you know?
One of the big drivers with access policy is your traffic counts.
Right.
Okay? So one thing is you want to take traffic from local roads, town roads, and get them onto better built roads. You don't want heavy truck traffic, you know, on town roads. They're not built for that. You want to get them on the county system. They're built better, they're wider, they have shoulders. And then you want to get them to your interstates, to get them on the bigger roads. So, I mean, to open this up, what you're going to look at is you're going to have to look at your speed limits, and your traffic counts are going to drive this. If we want to build more houses on our roads, then we need to look at our access policy and say, hey, we're not looking at safe roads. We just want to build houses.
I realize access is one of the most hotly contested issues, especially in eminent domain proceedings. Is there a change in the language that would have the same effect, but not the ambiguity of legal compliance from township to township?
That I can't tell you that.
Well, that's a difficult decision.
Yeah. I mean, one thing we got to look at is we're talking about one specific area, one specific access.
Right. That's why I'm asking.
If we had 10, 15 of them, I'd say, hey, we've got a problem here.
Yeah.
We have one specific spot we're looking at.
But in general, is this legal compliance terminology going to help open up parcels and make access safer in the county?
I mean, it's still going to come down to the highway commissioner to deem if it's safe or not. If it's not safe, we're going to deny it, and they can go for a variance. And that's what that variance process is for.
So you're saying even if you make the change, you could still deny it back based on perceived lack of safety?
Right. I mean, I don't know what that changes by putting legally compliant. I mean, because I don't know what legally compliant is to separate townships.
Okay, so this applies maybe more to a specific parcel than it does to parcels in general.
Correct. I mean, if we look at like a county road A, where your traffic counts are probably 6,000, 7,000 a day, different than M. I mean, M might be 600, 700 cars a day. Then you look at a local town road that may have 20 cars a day. So when we look at the safest areas, I mean, these access points have been, if you live in that area, you know Mr. Wojan's access is at that location. The minute we move it out onto out onto the county road, it's new for everybody. Hey, where did that come from? You know, right now it's in a spot right there. We look at it, it has an access and it meets our code. If somebody purchases it and wants to change it, then that's where it's going to open this up again.
In general, do you try to accommodate property owners as best you can for
At
access?
all times. I've talked to the county executive about, we've always been able to work out these. This is the first one we've never been able to come to some sort of conclusion with it.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to address a couple of things and to reiterate, you know, when a driveway is put in as an ag access, and you know, this is common. Mr. Fari mentioned this before in Vinland, and it's common, I think, through most of the towns. When you upgrade that to a residential access, it has to become compliant with current code. And where this is, there's no way that that's compliant with current code. And I'd also like to point out, you know, it was mentioned, you know, well, what if we put a roundabout in there at that intersection? And I would like everybody to imagine somebody having a driveway come in at a roundabout. I can't imagine that anyone would think that would be a good idea. Just like it's not a good idea to have a driveway come in at an intersection. So we have to work, the county has to work with the towns and come up with solutions that are going to be safe for everybody. And we have to realize that town roads have traffic too. Grandview is a through road. It has a fair amount of traffic for a town road because it goes from M all the way to Larson, and there's quite a bit of traffic that uses it, more than many town roads. So I would just urge this board to pass this resolution, and hopefully that will take care of some issues, not only in this particular place, but I've got to believe that there are other places in the county that have similar situations. Thank you.
Supervisor Bender.
I can tell you that I plowed these roads in Winchester for like 8 years, and Grandview has very little traffic. That intersection, I never had to worry about backing up. M is a feeder road. That's gonna take you to 116, it's gonna take you to Double I. If you go the other way on Steeple Hill, or on Grandview, it's gonna take you to Steeple Hill. You know, yes, you can continue on, but some of them are gonna go towards Larson, some of them are gonna go towards M. But basically, you have way more traffic on M. Everybody's trying to get to 116 to get to the major intersections, and M is plowed basically way before like Grandview and your feeder roads. That's not a truck route. If you ran a dump truck down Grandview, they'd be calling the highway department telling them you're wrecking their roads. So all the truck traffic's going down M, you know, so it's much more heavy equipment on M than you're gonna get on Grandview. I mean, the language has worked for us for 20-some years. I don't know, because we got one complaint, and we got Mr. Hanson in the back. They want to take his food stand away, selling, you know, vegetables, where the county doesn't have a problem with it, but unfortunately, he ran against Mr. Olson, and it's more of a political issue than I believe it's actually a county issue. Let the town handle their own problems, and if it's a political issue, handle it on the town side. Don't bring it up to us and want us to get in between it.
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will support this resolution on the credibility of the maker. Mr. Miller is a professional engineer. I'll take his advice.
I have one question for you, Commissioner. Yeah. I'm looking at this drawing, and it shows Winnebago County has a culvert right across the road. I don't know if you've seen that or not. I was wondering if they got one over there, what makes the difference if they have one there?
So, way back when this certified survey map was created, that parcel extended to the north side of M. So you can't have two parcels subdivided like that. So you had to have access to that. So part of the CSM being created was that there had to have been an access on that north side. So we allowed an ag access to that north side, which Mr. Wojan can attest to that. It's very low land. The farm equipment that comes in there is very 2-3 times a year, maybe out of that. That's why that was allowed, because once again, we are working with the property owner, and that was part that we had, that there was the reasonable option to do at that time.
And the other question I have is, it's been brought up, well, we have a in place. If you want to go and you don't agree with us, you can go and have a hearing and all this. Now, how much is the cost to have that hearing?
The variance?
Variance, yeah.
I believe it's $700, I believe. It could have changed.
That's what I thought it was. Thank you. That's all I have. Call for the question. I've got one other light here before you said that.
Oh, and I also
Supervisor
called
Robinson.
the question.
Supervisor Robinson.
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This is directed to you. Sure. What would be your solution to this problem?
I mean, one thing right now, the access that's there, to me, is a legally compliant access for ag. Until Mr. Wojan comes up to me and says, hey, I want to build a house in there, then this opens up, then we go through this again. So one thing is, I mean, we can't base this upon what if. What if I build this, or what if I was to do this? I mean, this certain parcel, I was contacted by 13 different people about this. Mr. Wojan, potential landowners, parents of the potential landowners. I mean, there's 13 different people I dealt with this. So the way we looked at it was, it met our ordinance because it has an existing access. Whether right now, if it's not legally compliant, I just ask why it's not being removed.
Okay, there was a motion made and seconded for ordinance number 21904 2023, amend Winnebago County Code, General Code Section 7.14, Parent 8, to replace the word possible with definition legally compliant. I had a motion made and seconded. Discussion has been had. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Nay. The nays have it, but we'll vote to make sure on your iPads. Ayes 15, nays 16. Good thing I called it. So that fails. Resolution number 220-04-2023 urged the Wisconsin Legislature to provide $18.7 million in stable core funding support for County Conservation Department staffing. Vice Chairman Fari.
Chairman, this resolution, first of all, I move for approval of Resolution 220-04-2023.
Motion made and seconded.
Thank you. This resolution, as you know, the state of Wisconsin is currently going through the budget process. The funding for land and water conservation departments has been provided by state law at a amount less than the law provides for. So this resolution, once again, and we bring it forward every budget to try to get more adequate funding for the directors of the departments and other staff. So that's what this is about. We have with us the Director of Land Water with us tonight, Chad. If you have particular detailed questions, I'm sure he can address them for you.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to remind everyone that Winnebago County sits on more water than any other county in the state of Wisconsin. We sit on 10% of the, is that correct, Chad? 10% of the water in Wisconsin?
Yes, in Winnebago.
Come right up to the mic, Chad, if you will, please. Thank you.
Chad, tell them if you would our current funding.
Yes, so currently for the whole state, there's about 11 million that we got for 2023. That would equate to about 185,000 for our department for staffing. So by fully funding this, that would be just about 400,000 for our department. And that would fund the first position at 100%, the second position at 70%, and the other positions within the department at 50% each. And that would be across the state if this was fully funded at 18.7 million.
Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for context, when did this formula funding change?
It has been this way for as long as I can remember, the funding formula. It's in Chapter 92 in state statute. They just have not been able to fully fund it ever, to my knowledge. So this is the attempt to try and get it fully funded. As the resolution states, the county staff are boots on the ground. There's a lot of state mandated things that come through the counties that we have to do, and that's why we get some of the staffing money. So there's just a lot going on in the world of conservation right now, and it's very much so needed to do the work that we do.
Thank you. I'll most definitely be supporting this.
Supervisor Depperding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have some questions. Have we spoken to our state representatives, and what was their feedback on this?
I have not personally. Our state organization has been leading a lot of those efforts and lobbying for that. From what I've heard, it sounds like there's bipartisan support and more support than they've seen in future or past years, more than ever. So they're optimistic that this is going to hopefully get passed. If not at 18.7, higher than where we've been, is the hopes.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Not seeing any other questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried. Supervisor Albrecht.
I move for adoption of resolution 220-042-2023.
We need to adjourn. You're up for adjournment already, Dave. We're up for adjournment. Motion is made and second adjourned. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Adjourned.